Hey everyone, Mr. Terhar here with your e-learning lesson for April the 22nd. Today we're going to dive into a type of organization that exists very frequently in agriculture, and that is a cooperative. And we're going to talk about what a cooperative is and the role that they play in agriculture. So let's start with what a cooperative is and why they were developed. A cooperative is a business owned and controlled by the people who use its services and whose benefits are derived and distributed equitably on the basis of use. So basically, a cooperative is a group of people with the same interests in mind that are working together to obtain certain benefits. Okay, so the users are called the members. So you have to be a member of the cooperative. It's not open to anyone. You have to be a member to receive the benefits. And the more you use a co-op, the more services he or she receives. And those earnings are allocated to members based on the amount of use. So the closest thing I could think of in, I guess, the regular world outside of agriculture would be like a Costco or a Sam's Club, a place that you can shop that offers unique pricing. It allows you to buy things in bulk at a lower price, but it's not open to the world, right? You have to be a member to get those benefits. A cooperative is somewhat similar in that regard. Cooperatives have been together for a very long time. People used to work together, back in the prehistoric times to hunt. It was much easier to hunt with a group of people rather than on your own. So people would team up, and when they would get a kill, they would share the rewards and share the food that they received from that kill. That was kind of a very early cooperative. You can trace some of the early agricultural cooperatives back to the Babylonians in the very, very early historic times. They would pool their resources during farming, so they would combine their seed together. They would combine their fertilizer, their tools, their labor, and kind of work together towards a common goal. The Chinese developed savings and loans, or institutions that farmers used to compile their finances and compile their money so that they could have more buying power and have more capital. When we were just starting out in this country, when we were settling the United States, there was a lot of cooperative work used in clearing the land and building farms. That all required cooperative efforts, excuse me, to do that. So the first formal cooperative business is assumed to have been developed in 1752. Um, this was a small insurance company called the Philadelphia Contribution Ship for the insurance of houses from loss by fire. A little wordy on the title there, but that was the first cooperative business in the U.S., and it was actually organized by Benjamin Franklin, of all people, and it's still in operation today. There are other farm organizations that were created, the Farmers Alliance, Farmers Educational, and Cooperative Union of America. Those began to promote cooperative development. Um, and farmers that weren't affiliated with any of those organizations began to establish their own cooperatives. And by 1900, there were at least 1,223 cooperatives that were active in the U.S. So at that point in time, farmers were small. The average farm was very small, and one farmer has limited resources, but when you take several farmers and combine their resources together, it gives them a lot more power. One important part of agricultural history is the Grange. And the Grange was an organization that was established by farmers to improve the economic and the social position of the nation's farm population. And they formed what was known as the National Grange, and they began to engage in cooperative marketing and purchasing. So the Grange is, probably the closest thing that farmers had to a union. at the time. There were other industries that were unionizing to advocate for, better working conditions, better pay, better benefits, things like that. Well, farmers couldn't really unionize because they all worked for themselves, but they could unite and work towards being able to purchase things together. They could work on, furthering the economic and the social position of the farmer, and that's what the National Grange did. So cooperatives, as they're known today, were formed in Great Britain in the 19th century, in the 1800s. During that point in time in Great Britain, uh, they were undergoing the Industrial Revolution. And uh, as the Industrial Revolution began to take place, uh, workers began to become more aware of, furthering their situation, helping to advocate for themselves to basically be treated better. And farming was no different. It was developed, the first cooperative was developed by a group of 28 workers who were dissatisfied with the merchants in their community. So they weren't happy with how their goods were being sold or how they could buy goods. So they began to band together and sell their own goods to each other. So Farmer A sells corn to Farmer B, and Farmer B sells cattle to Farmer C. And it was more of a farmer to farmer type of relationship. Um, and that helped everyone out in that regard. So there's different types of cooperatives. There's a centralized cooperative, and these cooperatives sell farm supplies to their members. You can buy seed, fertilizer, petroleum, chemicals, farm equipment. And America's farmers purchase approximately 28% of their supply needs through cooperatives. One of the main benefits of a cooperative is that it allows farmers to receive better prices for their goods that they need to buy, their supplies. So things like fertilizer and seed. They could go, as an individual, they could approach a seed dealer and get a certain price. But the idea is a cooperative can approach that seed dealer and say, hey, we have 300 members, 300 farmer members that buy their seed through us. We would be willing to purchase a larger volume of seed. Can you give us a discounted price as a result? And oftentimes the answer is yes. So cooperatives, one of the main benefits is that it gives a farmer more buying power. Instead of just one person uh, securing a price, uh, they can secure a price for a larger volume, and typically suppliers are willing to offer more of a discount that way. So 28% of all farm supplies are purchased through centralized cooperatives. And then you have your federated cooperatives, and these federated cooperatives aren't so much used for purchasing supplies, the farmers purchasing supplies anyway. They're used more to sell their members' farm goods. Okay, so basically, it's a cooperative of farmers that go together and they will actually use that cooperative to sell what they produce. So, Prairie Farms, for example, is an Indiana cooperative of dairy farmers, and basically, it's several dairy farmers in Indiana are compiling their milk and they're using the Prairie Farms cooperative to market and sell that milk. So that's an example of that. Some marketing cooperatives perform limited number of functions while others vertically integrate. And we see vertical integration in several forms of agriculture, in the poultry industry, for example. There's a reason why when you look at farm prices, right, and you see the price for the futures price for corn, for soybeans, for wheat, and you see a futures price for live cattle, fat cattle, lean hogs. There's a reason why you don't see a futures price for chickens. And it's because there really isn't a futures market for chickens. There's not a commodity price quoted for chickens because the entire industry is vertically integrated. Companies like Tyson own the entire process from start to finish. They own their own hatching facilities. They own their own um, incubators. They own their own, growing facilities. They own the trucks that transport the chickens back and forth. They own the plants that process those chickens. They own everything from start to finish. Hershey's is another great example of that. Hershey's Candy owns the cocoa farms in South America, and they own their own trucking system. So that allows the company to control its inputs from start to finish. They don't have to worry about what happens if our shipping costs go up. Well, you own the shipping company, so you control that, right? So it allows a company to control its inputs. It adds value to the finished product and allows it to control that product all the way through until it's sold to consumers. So some cooperatives actually involve vertical integration where they own all of the process of production from start to finish. Okay? We don't really see it so much with crop production, but in livestock production, we do see some vertical integration, especially in the poultry industry, where a company like Tyson owns that bird from the time that it's born until the time that it leaves the grocery store meat counter. So some cooperatives will even sell their products in grocery stores. Companies like Land O'Lakes, Ocean Spray, Florida's Natural. um, and those labels, if you buy something Land O'Lakes, you're buying directly from that group of farmers. Cooperatives can bargain for better prices. They can store and sell member commodities, and they can sell or they can process farm products into more consumer-ready goods. So, in the U.S., agricultural cooperatives handle approximately 30% of farmers' total farm market volume. So, cooperatives are undeniably a huge, huge part of the ag infrastructure of the United States. Another type of cooperative would be a service cooperative. Okay, and that's a cooperative that would provide various services to the members. So, maybe things like pesticide application or other chemicals, seed cleaning, artificial insemination if we're talking about livestock production. Um, so also things like the farm credit system would be a part of a service cooperative. It's basically a group of individuals that provides services for its members. Another example would be a rural electric cooperative. So REMC, Boone County REMC, which is I'm sure a lot of your electric provider, uh, is an example of an electrical cooperative, a rural electrical cooperative. And basically, all of its members help to finance the company and keep the electrical system uh, upkept and make repairs and things like that. Okay, let's stop here for right now. You have some questions on Canvas to answer. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will gladly answer those and have a great day. Thanks, guys.